All right, aloha, Tulsi Krats, Bernie Krats, free radicals of all shapes, sizes, colors, denominations, orientations. Aloha from cloudy Florida. Not quite as hot as it's been down here, but hey, we're still leading the way in climate change here in Florida. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dave, and this is the Radical Independent. Yeah. And I want to thank, I had, again, some folks really chip in over on PayPal yesterday, and you know who you are. I want to thank you for supporting this channel. I had a self-identifying senior citizen who sent me a couple of really nice emails as well about the channel and about my belief that Tulsi Gabbard is the best presidential candidate of my lifetime. And when I say that, I truly do mean it. It's not wild hyperbole. It's one of the reasons I abandoned looking for any other candidates to replace President Trump. She is the best candidate for the job. And by the way, if she was allowed, and when I say allowed, if she won the nomination fair and square in the Democratic Party, and was able to face off against President Trump, I believe she would win in a landslide. But we are up against all kinds of different things. We're up against a whole bunch of Bernie people who want to hurry up and get this over with. They're basically like, okay, she's hanging in there. We really need her people to get on board with Bernie, get enthusiastic about Bernie. And I've said, for the most part, unless, Bernie becomes a complete train wreck, that if it wasn't Tulsi for me, it's probably going to be Bernie. It's not going to be Warren, okay? And again, if the corporatists are allowed to pick the candidate again, like it appears that they're doing, me and my friend Kelly, we have this conversation all the time. Because there are just people in the progressive, so-called progressive, neo-progressive movement that don't address the roadblock, the detour, the trap door, whatever you want to call it, that is up ahead. They just want to keep talking about the horse race. Well, Biden is up in this state, but his lead is collapsing. All these people are so excited about Biden and the Biden free fall and so forth, and a lot of it is going over to Warren, so I don't know if they should be all that enthusiastic. But the horse race itself is rigged. Okay? This idea that we're going to keep focusing on the horse race and we're going to talk about strategy and who's saying what and the media and how they're treating their favorite candidate and so forth. What does it matter if they get to the convention and these super delegates come back and they say, because by the way, if you turn on local media every day, all you hear is Joe Biden beating Donald Trump. My local media, they don't even talk about Bernie. They talk a little bit about Warren. They don't talk about Bernie. They certainly would never mention Tulsi, although they had to talk about Tulsi during the Hillary interaction that took place. They couldn't avoid that. But it's a horse race that is being controlled, and Tulsi Gabbard made this point before she almost boycotted the last debate. There are a lot of people running around talking about things that don't matter. It's like, who cares how you build the damn house if your foundation is faulty? Oh, well, there's a few cracks in the foundation. 4 years ago, it just fell apart, and the house collapsed, and we got Hillary Clinton. This time around, hey, they fixed a couple of the cracks. The superdelegates are, the media is still doing the same thing. They're doing the exact same thing, and now you got progressives, neo-progressives, neoliberals, neoconservatives, all working against the best candidate who's ever run for president in my lifetime. It's true. So everybody is working against Tulsi Gabbard. There's a systemic problem, and most people are talking about the horse race. That's what they focus on. Well, Elizabeth Warren, did you hear her health care plan? Yes, I'm declaring right now that I am an independent contractor. If you don't get that, then you don't understand Elizabeth Warren's plan. But I'm declaring, I've already put this over to Google. The folks over at Google, they know in case Warren does win and she's able to implement her plan, I am an independent contractor, so I'll get health care, and then my taxes won't go through the roof. But it's at least that's a policy thing, and it's not just the horse race. But to over-examine, which deck chairs need to be cleaned up, and which deck chairs, hey, look at the cup holder over here. Isn't this beautiful? Wow, I should sit over in this chair. And it's like, yeah, but the whole ship is just, it's breaking apart. And I find it amusing. And that's why I've said from early on in this channel's history that there needs to be another way. And I've even looked at Howie Hawkins. The guy is a Russiagate hoaxer. He's got a great healthcare plan. And I know the system will certainly destroy third parties, and they're all and you know why? Here's my theory on Howie Hawkins quickly as to why he believes in all this stuff or has gone in on it. Because he doesn't want to get the crap about being a Russian agent. But you know what? He's going to get it anyway. He's definitely going to get it. Because look, listen to what happens here on MSDNC.
Couple together what you're saying right here live on the broadcast to me, and in addition to that which you wrote in the Wall Street Journal op-ed on Tuesday. And here's part of how it went. I can defeat Trump and the Clinton doctrine, in which you write, whether Mrs. Clinton's name is on the ballot or not, her foreign policy will be, as many of the Democratic candidates adhere to her doctrine of acting as the world's police, using the tools of war to overthrow governments we don't like, wasting taxpayer dollars, costing American lives, causing suffering and destruction abroad, and undermining America's security. There are those who would suggest, look, the Russians don't want the United States to be America's police as well. So when, the Americans to be the world police. So what is your message to Democratic voters who may see this, may be listening to you right now and feel that it mirrors President Trump's isolationist foreign policy views?
Because, everybody on both ends of the political spectrum, we all believe that isolationism is bad. And by the way, Donald Trump's so-called isolationism, okay? He did this thing in Syria that was way too late, and it didn't make any sense at that moment. It's the whole idea of, you're going to get a vacuum at this point because you've created all the turmoil and chaos. So he's going to get hit, by the way, and legitimately so, by both the left and the right. But here's what I would say about that, is that Trump inherited that problem from Obama. And so is it Trump's fault? Yes, because he's the commander-in-chief currently. But we've created this system that dates back probably since, post-World War II, I guess. At least 50 years, maybe longer. You got to look at least maybe Vietnam, Korean War. Where we've become the interloper or the intervener, or we just cannot keep our grubby military hands off of various places. We just can't do it. So this is an amazing exchange which illustrates sort of the systemic problem that we have with this entire process. This woman asks Tulsi Gabbard basically, so people on the left are going to accuse you of being an isolationist, like President Trump, who's really not an isolationist, who ran on being an isolationist, or, hey, I'm using their word, a person or a man or a woman president who is not for regime change war all over the world. See, Tulsi Gabbard framed this properly when she called it a regime change war. Because that's what it is. We're going into a country that has a regime. We don't like the regime. Plus, they have natural resources. Venezuela being at the top of that list. I think they have more oil than Saudi Arabia. And we're going to go down there, and as Jimmy Dore says, we're going to try to impose democracy upon these people. We're going to give the Venezuelan people democracy, which they so need, because all of a sudden we are the moral agents of the area. We so care about what's happening there that we're going to, number one, we're going to clean up the government, and as a reward for doing such nice work, we're going to take all their oil. Or in other countries, we're going to take their natural resources, their minerals, okay? So this numbskull of a woman who asks this question, she has no journalistic knowledge outside of her little MSNBC bubble, which, again, if you do another bubble, there's the Washington-New York corridor bubble, where everybody thinks the same, and it tends to get out to the West Coast here and there, and to other large metropolitan elitist areas of the country that just, look down upon us deplorable types, us unwashed types. So, look, I understand that when you do a channel here on YouTube, and I've done it myself, I have documented the horse race. I have said, well, here's, Tulsi Gabbard moving up in the polls. And then I've been counseled by one of my friends who says, well, what does it matter? So she's at 5% now. That's great. Do you think she's got a shot at stealing the convention away, stealing the nomination away from these lunatics that just want to run somebody against Trump who's not Trump? Who, they take all these polls, Biden will beat Trump, Biden will beat Trump. Yeah, Bernie will beat Trump. Tulsi will beat Trump too. And, at least in the last two that I mentioned, I think the country might benefit from the policies of a Tulsi Gabbard or a Bernie Sanders. What are these other candidates? What's Mayor Pete going to do when he can't even get his own city in order? If he can't manage a city, okay, and I'm not saying it's easy to be a mayor. I'm just saying, if you're going to take that mayor stepping stone thing and go to president, you may want to have mastered that job first, which you have not. You've just been groomed. Look, you know who's grooming people? Not Russia. It's the insiders that work within our government. They're grooming people like a Mayor Pete, like a Kamala Harris, like a Joe Biden to some degree. Okay, any of the, and definitely like an Elizabeth Warren, who has basically said, hey, I live in an ivory tower. I used to be a Republican. I'm a very strong capitalist to the core. I can make the military greener. I can make your health care more expensive. And yes, I'm an independent contractor. I just want to make it clear. Indie contractor right here. I'm the radical independent contractor. That's from now on, that's what I go by. So that works out nicely, by the way, because it's in the name. So if they dispute, I can say right there it says independent. So, all right, enough fun. We're having way too much fun here. This is another thing that a lot of neo-progressives don't know how to do. They don't know how to kind of laugh at life and be somewhat optimistic. And it's scary. And by the way, it scares a lot of people on the right and in the middle who are just like, oh no, what are they saying? Why are they so angry? Because most people don't wake up this angry. I mean, I don't know if it's just the Trump derangement syndrome, but the progressives, at least the ones that haven't bought into the whole, Russiagate hoax and Ukrainegate hoax, I'm going to say it first. It's Ukrainegate. It's the same thing. It's just another hoax, Ukrainian hoax. Right? Joe Biden's kid is all over this, and everybody just pretends, oh, he did nothing. Joe can come out and say 100 times he did nothing wrong, but he did a whole bunch of crap wrong. There's a quid and a pro quo. As Nancy Pelosi says, all you need is a quid. No, Nancy, actually you need both, okay? I mean, if you're fishing and there ain't no fish you're fishing in a dry lake, then, I'm sorry, you're stupid, okay? And it may look dumb, but you didn't break the law or do anything wrong. That's the least of our worries right now with all of these pressing issues. And if you wanted to impeach Trump, war crimes. But nobody will go there because they'll expose the entire thing. And we get back to this wonderful woman here who just goes after Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard's face during this interview is priceless. Because she's like, who is this person? She doesn't even understand any of what I wrote in this op-ed. And she's worried because she thinks Democrats are going to reject me because my policy is like Trump, even though Trump hasn't actually implemented this policy. He's pushed back a little bit, and he gets branded as an isolationist. Wow, those 800 military bases, have they closed yet? Have they all closed down? Because if Trump was this brilliant isolationist, I think some of those military bases might be closing, and some of those troops might be coming home. All Trump's done is asked to get paid. Hey, if our guys are going to go over there, we're going to get paid. That's the Trump way. Not, hey, let's stop this policy. Hey, our guys need to get paid. I guess that's a start, but it doesn't fix the problem. We still got the same problem. It looks good in the eyes of a lot of people that are getting duped. And by the way, at the end of this video here, which is happening soon, I want to make a point of saying we're all kind of getting duped by this entire horse race process. Again, the House, the foundation of the DNC, and this entire thing, they're not just a few cracks. Again, there are trapdoors, there are holes, there are people waiting to sabotage people who get too close. Happened to Bernie Sanders. They just look at the Ohio vote last time around. And all the delegates went to Hillary Clinton. Bernie won Ohio in 2016, going away, meaning he won it big time. Okay? Now, Tulsi Gabbard, she's up to 5% in some polls. She might even go up higher. She might even take the lead. Who knows? But the point is, I don't know if this process can allow for somebody who's a true outsider. That's why it was shocking to see Trump run over the Republican Party and get to the nomination over there. I think the difference is the DNC is probably more corrupt than the RNC. Just saying. Just saying. They're, by the way, both parties are corrupt, and we need a new way. Okay? And if you're the House, the foundation is crap, then guess what? You need to demolish the whole thing and start all over again. And nobody, there are very few commentators that are really talking about this. And from where I sit, that is the most important issue facing this election cycle. And until that problem gets addressed, it's going to happen every election cycle. And we need a third party on the ballot in all 50 states. I guess the Libertarian Party is, from what I understand. The Libertarians, they're not gonna worry about the poor and the working class. They're going to worry about the people that have what they have, and they're going to encourage them and say, work harder and we'll get out of your way and you can earn more money and get greedier, and there won't be any new laws that go into effect to help anybody who's struggling with student loan debt or any other of these massive debts that are happening. By the way, one last point. People have asked me recently, so Dave, you're independent and so forth, but how are all these politicians going to pay for all of these proposals? Okay, so this is my new answer. This is my new answer, which I think really goes to the heart of our financial system, the backroom dealing that's going on, and the haves versus the have-nots. So again, I told you about that video I watched, Jimmy Dore and Dylan Ratigan, okay, and the financial markets were greased with $130 billion in 2 days in the month of September. The first time they've done this, by the way, since 2008. They created money out of thin air. They monetized debt, meaning it doesn't exist. The debt doesn't exist. Or they get rid of it, or they write it off the books. But they're giving money to themselves that they are creating. It's like if I had a printing press in my house, and we ran out of money, and I said, honey, I'm just going to print some money, because this is how they do it on Wall Street. Okay? So if somebody says to you, how are we going to pay for it? Say, well, we can just print money, because they do it on Wall Street. If you're afraid that we don't have enough money, Wall Street doesn't seem to be worried about not having enough money. Interest rates spike because it's a house of cards. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's unsustainable. This economy that we're currently in is unsustainable. We've been deficit spending forever. We're $22 trillion in debt, 21, whatever it is, okay, and climbing. Nobody's really that concerned about it. There's no Tea Party movement anymore because they know The financial markets, they just print money. I mean, they didn't have any solutions to this problem back in 2008. They didn't. Tim Geithner and those guys were like, oh, we'll just inject cash into the system, and then it'll eventually, will prevent the Great Depression instead of the Great Recession. But nobody in the middle or lower classes sees any of this money. They see, there's not as much carnage and destruction within the financial markets because everybody up there has money, but none of this money trickles down. Trickle down doesn't work because trickle down depends on people who are going to be charitable. And in this climate we've had since probably Ronald Reagan, people are not charitable. People are greedy. And again, I know that. So if anyone asks you, how's Tulsi, Bernie, whoever, how are they going to pay for their health care program? Just say, we can print money. That's what we do. They do it for large banking institutions. They're all too big to fail. We do it for car companies, right? Who instead of declaring bankruptcy like everybody else has to. It's the same reason why you get a credit card the day after you pay off your credit card debt. Because they want to do it again to you. Because they'll make a ton of money on the interest. And even if you default, they've got a backup plan. Their backup plan is they'll print money. So, there you go. I could do a whole video on that. That's kind of Kim Iverson territory. She should get into that. She should do a whole 20-minute, 30-minute fascinating video on what the Fed did in September, because it's mind-boggling, and it will change your perspective on the idea of, gee, how are you going to pay for that? I would say, gee, I'm not worried until somebody tells me what they just did over on Wall Street in September and how that worked and how they were legally able to just print money and pay off their own debts or grease the market so the fears go away. All right? Till somebody can tell me why they're doing that and the rationale for that and why the little people like you and I, why we can't partake in that. They can't give me an answer. You know why? Because they don't have an answer. So there you go. My video is done. Enjoy. Play it over and over again, especially if it's monetized. And if it's not, I will let you know. Talk to you soon.